Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at jonnydelsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49. Oh, yeah. It is a Victory Monday. I think Johnny is with us. He, I know, had his son in his studio with him today, so he may be doing something real quick. I'm sure he will be back. We got a lot to go over. Yes, and there he is.
What was happening? I was stuck in backstage and couldn't get myself out.
You locked yourself out of your own show.
Yeah,
Well
like I
done,
was
my
sitting here
friend.
watching everything from the interface, and it was just like,
All good.
yeah, that was super weird. Anyways,
speaking of super weird, let us like woosah, like I'm still in the bask of the sun, of the way the sun was shining yesterday all day. I am so excited, honestly, to get into all of the things that we talked about that literally came to fruition. So let's go in as much as we can. Let's go in chronological order, because obviously that second play. Let's start there, man. Good morning.
yeah. Well, I'll just say I think that was one of the most hyped. I don't even know hyped, but I think satisfying wins I can remember in maybe since the Saints game in 2011. I think just as far as a game where the team all season felt like they were vastly overperforming what you expected of them. I remember when Harbaugh came in, we expected them to be a better team, but they ended up being the number one team in the NFL that year. But even with that, nobody believed that the 49ers were going to beat the Saints in that game. And they ended up, the catch three. It was amazing. This feels like the most satisfying win because the comeback win in the NFC Championship game against the Lions to go to the Super Bowl. That was an amazing comeback, but it was a game that we felt like we were supposed to, that team was supposed to be in the Super Bowl. That was a special, uber talented team. This team is a team that has lost so many blue chip players. They've lost so many of their role players. They're literally a team full of role players. They have no real superstars anywhere outside of Christian McCaffrey. Trent Williams, I don't know if you can call him a superstar. He hasn't played to the level that he had before. He's an incredible talent. He's Hall of Fame left tackle, but you can have the best offensive line you can, but if you don't have somebody who can run the ball and you don't have receivers who can catch, it doesn't matter. If you don't have a quarterback, it doesn't matter. Just remember back to the 2022 NFC Championship game. The 49ers lost Brock Purdy. We had Trent Williams, and we had no chance in that game because you have no quarterback. It doesn't matter how good your offensive line is. In the NFL, if you cannot throw the ball at all, it's game over. So like this whole year, this team has lost so much, and it feels like we would be perfectly understanding about a 7-9 or 7-10 season. So I still want to think about the years in 16 game seasons, but a
Right,
7-10 season, we would be perfectly most people would be perfectly understanding with what this team has gone through. After losing George Kittle in this game, everybody would have been perfectly understanding and say, you know what, there's just a certain point you cannot overcome the injury wave. But they did. They found a way to win. And here's what is absolutely fantastic, or I guess fascinating to me. They have got to find a way to keep Robert Saleh, because the difference between last season and this season is not health. The team has been more injured, if anything, than they were last year when they were super injured. The difference is Robert Saleh is piecing together enough of a defense to close out games. That is defensive coordinator at its finest, when you can close out games. What did we always what were the biggest frustrations with our offense in the Super Bowls against Steve Spagnuolo? Was that he always closed the game. Is that when it came down to crunch time, Spagnuolo continued to have answers against our offense. We went into the end of the 2019 Super Bowl with a 10-point lead, and we got dog walked in the fourth quarter. The offense could not score. When you go back to the 2023 Super Bowl, we barely scored. I think it was 2 field goals near the end of the game, because Spagnuolo's defense held extremely strong and our defense caved at the end of the game. This has been complete opposite this season. You go back to the very first win of the year, week 1. The defense were the last guys on the field having to win the game, because we were ahead by 6 points because Jake Moody decided to be Jake Moody, and he missed 2 field goals. Sam Darnold was at the 49ers 17-yard line, and Nick Bosa forces a fumble, and they close the game. You go to the very next week against the Saints. We had an opportunity to close out the game. Mac Jones is playing, right? And they couldn't do it on offense. The defense, 2 drives in a row, stood strong and closed out that game. They have done this throughout the entire season. Last year, under Nick Sorensen, this defense was the worst fourth quarter scoring defense in the league, and it wasn't close. And we kept talking about, if they just had a marginal fourth quarter scoring defense, that the 49ers would have been a playoff team. And you see exactly that this year. Is that a defense that can make stops, get stops somehow? That it's like for 3.5 quarters, they can't get stops on a regular basis. And then the last drive of the fourth quarter this season, they have consistently gotten stops and gotten wins and closed out games. And it is so fun and so amazing to watch. I know Robert Saleh is going to be deeply sought after. What I hope is that he understands that as sought after as you are in your second stint, you will have almost no one look at you for a third stint. So where you go next, you need to be successful. You can't go to a bad organization that is set up for failure. That's not that's not an option for you. It's kind of like starting quarterbacks. If you fail one place and then you go, you can see my son, he's coming in. He probably wants a little something here. So I'll pass it back to Adam real quick. But when you go one place and you fail, your next stop, if you completely fail, it's extremely rare that you will get a third opportunity. If Robert Saleh, if he goes to a team like, say, the Giants, and who I have no faith in them being a successful organization, or Miami, who is completely cash strapped and salary cap strapped. They have an issue there with Tua's contract. They don't have a quarterback. They have a lot of issues. If you go to one of those 2 places, I don't see you being successful. And if you aren't successful there and you get fired, for a second time as a head coach, it's very unlikely you will get a third opportunity to be a head coach in this league. So that's the only reason I look at it. I say, it's Ravens or nothing, I think, right now for Robert Saleh. And I'm hoping the Ravens say we need to go offensive coach.
Right, right. So one thing I want to address is an amazing super chat from a awesome Niner faithful Glass City. NFL really doesn't want the Niners in the NFC Championship game because of their injuries. They are afraid of a blowout, giving Seattle every advantage. I can't believe how cursed the team is with injuries. I'm crying because of Kittle. We will thank you so much, Glass City, big friend of the show. Always
Yes, yes.
glad
Thank you
when you
so
are on the
much for
show.
that.
We'll get into Kittle because again, I think this will be fun to chronologically go through the game. So we will absolutely discuss Kittle. Let's get back on track, Johnny, with that second play of the game and talk through and go ahead and beat your chest for acknowledging that, hey, you called stuff like this.
Yeah, so I posted on my X. Second play of the game, we get a 61-yard pass to Demarcus Robinson. Who had that on their bingo card, right? And it was set up. One thing that Shanahan did so well in this game was he started to use tempo. I don't know if you guys noticed that on the broadcast. It was be like the Eagles would get a tackle and you would see the offensive line almost run right back up to the line. And they were sometimes it looked like they were calling 2 plays in the huddle. And I'll get into that in a second of why they did that. Normally, we call 2 plays in the huddle that it's a check, that you're going to call a run with a check to a pass or a pass with a check to a run. It felt like they were foregoing that this time because one, Fangio is very, very predictable on first down. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. He puts that on defense. Here's what we're not going to allow. Here's what we're going to put against you. And here's what we're going to make the offenses do. And so you have a predictable idea of what's coming at you. And I talked about it on Friday, showed a bunch of clips, right? The Eagles love to run cover 9 on first down, which is a weak side rotation of cover 3. So that means the safety is going to come down into the box on the weak side away to give them an 8th element in the box. And also close the post. He knows a lot of teams want to run play action and attack the middle of the field off of play action. So he wants to close the middle of the field on first down against that and also give them an extra body against the run. So the very first play of the game, we come out, we do some motions, and you see Mike Epps come down as a weak side safety of cover 9. And they run the ball. They run this little toss. If you hear anything in the background, I hope not. My son's watching YouTube. Not me. But anyways, so we run that play and then immediately run back up to the line. And that's because they wanted to stress Fangio's communication from the booth to his players, where you have the situation where Fangio loves to run quarters, half, and half quarters. And a lot of times, and I covered this a little bit on my preview video, and I also told everybody go watch Brett Coleman's video that dropped earlier in the day because it was a fantastic video and it was like a primer. He was able to save me like 45 minutes of my video because he did such a phenomenal job, and the way he spent 2 years working on that video. And so it was really streamlined. He recorded 3 hours of audio for it and then cut it all down together to really try and simplify the communication of what Fangio likes to do. So Fangio loves to have calls specific for players that he's going to take away a certain player, like McCaffrey, for example. He might call Zeus 23, and that's a certain check in their coverage where they're going to either, depending on where McCaffrey lines up, have a different coverage on that side of the field, and the other side will be opposite. So if it's quarters, half, if it's quarter side to McCaffrey, the other side is going to be in half, right? And they do this to bracket McCaffrey if they really want to take him away. And so if you're trying to keep Fangio from being able to call that from the booth on second down, you run this no huddle and you force them into on-field communication. And what ended up happening was Reed Blankenship thinks he's going to be a weak side rotation of cover 3 because it's running no huddle. So he's just playing the same call that they had on first down, but the rest of the defense, most of the other defense was playing Quinion Mitchell, and then the other safety Epps and Jackson, they're playing as if it's half quarters. And so Blankenship's supposed to be a quarter safety. He ends up playing as a curl flat safety in cover 3, but it's supposed to be quarters and a quarters half. So you end up getting Demarcus Robinson wide open because Blankenship busts his coverage. They get 2 guys who go and play Juszczyk in the flat, and you end up stressing their communication. That's why Shanahan was using tempo for the first time, because he knew that Fangio was going to have a lot of checks in his calls, and those would be communicated down. So he was disrupting Fangio's communication to his defense, so he couldn't do a lot of the things he really wanted to do. And they kind of figured it out halfway through the game, and our offense started to stall. But then as the game went along, then Shanahan was coming with the counterpunch. It was absolute masterclass on both sides from Fangio and Shanahan of coaching, but it gives you an example of what Shanahan did, and something that we talked about Friday that absolutely played into the game from the second play of the game.
Unbelievable. I mean, again, you called it. It was so great to see Robinson really break out. So there was some things that you had pointed out as the doctor is real in. Guys like Johnny Dell and Brett Coleman make us better and smarter fans. Yes. Um, Amazing always, Brett Coleman, great stuff. And I'm looking forward to the video breakdown that you do this week to show just some of this stuff. We are super pumped. So thanks for the super chat as always. So I think from the get-go, the Eagles, what was great about that play and the drive and the touchdown was that it signaled to the whole world that, all right, Philly, you're in for it, and you better not make the same boneheaded play calling type of stuff that you've been doing the last 10 or so weeks, because if you do and you can't stop San Francisco, it's going to be a long day. And their defense did step up quite a few times, but that opening drive though signaled,
It also, what was surprising to me is Shanahan was willing to throw as much as he was in those conditions. I mean, so
yeah.
those who were at the game, let us know exactly how windy it was there.
CJ Gray,
you were there. They kept showing on the broadcast how the wind was gusting up to 35 miles an hour, and you could see some of the throws just it like wobbling and pulling as it was being thrown. And Brady talked about it. I think that was one of the greatest segments that I've seen from Brady in there. Him
yeah.
like dissecting how you have to change your arm slot and your throwing motion when you're throwing in high wind situations compared to not. But I will say, at some point, some of the Brock Purdy discourse just needs to change completely and forever, I think, at this point. Because people are still holding on to narratives that they've had in 2022 and 2023 and 2024. Like, people made up their mind in 2022 a certain thing because they wanted Trey Lance. Like, Trey Lance was the uber talented, uber physical talented guy that they wanted, and he was going to be Josh Allen, or who Caleb Williams has been in some of these off schedule and crazy physically talented plays. And Brock doesn't look anything like that. And so there were people even in 2022 were like, no. There needs to be a real competition, even with the team going to the NFC Championship game that year. And all the success they had with Brock and the team scoring 31 points per game. It was, well, imagine what this offense would do with Trey Lance. It's just he's a little bit better than Jimmy, and we hated Jimmy. Okay. So 2023 comes around, and they're mad as hornets because it's not a real competition in camp between Trey and Brock. And it was like, it was never going to be a real competition. And they couldn't stomach that. And so then Trey Lance gets traded. And it's, well, we need to go find a real quarterback because, they're winning with Brock, but it's just because this is the most talented team in the NFL. He's being carried, and tell me if we remember these statements. He's being carried by a top 5 offensive play caller. He's being carried by a top 5 defense, by a top 5 run game, by all these weapons. Anybody's going to have success doing that. That's what we heard, right? Let's see him do it when he doesn't have all those weapons, when he doesn't have a top 5 run game, when he doesn't have a top 5 defense. Let's see him win then. All this season, this has not been a top 5 defense. They've been a bottom 5 run team. They don't have weapons. All their weapons have been hurt almost the entire season. They went into Philly with 35-mile-an-hour gusts against a top 3 defense, a defense that has its rankings even with as bad as their offense had been in the second half of almost all these games. That defense is, in my opinion, it's Houston is the number 1 defense in the league. Philadelphia is the number 2 defense in the league, and Seattle's number 3. Because what Vic Fangio has had to do with the kind of stress that their offense has put on his defense, that was at least the second best defense in the league. And so he went against the second best defense in the league with no weapons, lost George Kittle to a torn Achilles in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
In 35-mile-an-hour wind gusts, with no run game, his own defense that is a bottom 10 defense because of all the injuries, and won the freaking game on the road in the playoffs. At some point, and had the game-winning drive. At some point, people have got to stop hyper-criticizing what Brock doesn't do, because the kid goes out, wins, plays at an extremely high level, and all of these things that people have been using for years to try and discredit him have all gone by the wayside. None of them have stood the stress test. And what people have been clamoring, they said that they would give Brock all of his flowers and they would recognize him as an elite quarterback if he could do it without all the weapons, carrying the team and all this stuff. He just did it. Are you going to say he's him now?
I can't even think of what the excuses could be. I mean, honestly, so I think the narrative may change. We'll see. I'm curious. I know I know that it doesn't matter, but I do like to see sometimes what the national media says. And guys like Kurt Warner, and there are some people who just love Brock. And then there are some that just continue to dump on him. And so I'm curious what what those shows will be like this week. I know they're not going to give us much of a chance at Seattle, and I do understand why. Let's get into Kittle. You could see right away, you know, what happened. You messaged me right away when it happened. I'm just like, and someone said it in the chat. I'm trying to look and see who it was, because it was exactly my sentiment going of how this season sediment is like it's dirt,
like
right?
river runoff.
Yeah. My sentiment was, hey, when Kittle went down, I thought, well, all right, let's just see how it goes. Like, let's just, we can still do this. We got Jake, we got, maybe Juszczyk will step up. He did. We do have other tight ends that put on their jersey and their helmet as well. Let's get out there. And it was Eddie 0371. Eddie said, I have become numb to the injuries. When Kittle went down, I didn't think we were done. I just thought, let the game play out. And that's exactly like this team has just shown over the last 2 months. Like, hey, these things are going to happen. And gosh, you feel so bad for Claire and George Kittle.
Yeah.
Like, shout out to that tequila company. Hopefully he does a commercial with them. And they can make some more money.
I will say, what we've seen over the last 4 years is that when you have Brock Purdy in the game, you are never out of the game. I mean, That's been the reality. You look at Seattle, week 18. The offense was playing horrible all game long. The defense couldn't stop the run game. Yet at the very near the end of that game, we have almost a for sure touchdown if McCaffrey holds on to the ball, right? And that would have made the game a 3-point game. And I mean, like as bad as things go in that game because of Brock, you are never out of that game. Like people have been asking for a quarterback like that, and they just don't realize it because they think that means that you're going to have a guy like Caleb Williams who rolls to his left, is falling back on his hindquarters and throws a ball up, and it's this crazy sideline off schedule play, which we have seen Brock make some crazy off schedule plays, but they act like that's what it has to look like a lot for it to mean like you're never out of the game. No, it means that you have a guy who's unflappable, that the moment just doesn't get to him, that he will still continue slinging it. He will still continue reading defenses. He will still continue putting you in a position to win. That's what Joe Montana did. It wasn't always going to be a crazy off schedule play, but I mean, you go back to, it was Super Bowl 20s or Super Bowl 19, forgetting the numbers there. The drive against the Bengals, that was a low scoring game going into the end of that game. Like it wasn't like the 49ers offense had been, it was a shootout. He throws a touchdown pass to John Taylor in the back of the end zone. He executed the 3-minute offense to perfection because no matter what had happened earlier in the game, he was able to deliver in the biggest moments, and that's what we saw from Brock. If you go back to the Super Bowl, if it was the rules of 2019, the 49ers win that Super Bowl. They just do. Like they win that Super Bowl if it's the old rules. Even with that, he drove down and the 49ers had the lead when he walked off the field. There's been 5 playoff games that Brock has started and finished, and trying to do my math real quick. That he started and finished, and every single one of them, he walked off the field with the lead.
Can't ask for much more than that.
And in all 5 of those, he had a score to put his team in the lead. He drove the team down to score at the end. Like you cannot ask for more from your quarterback. And so it's just been absolutely, I love that we have that guy here on our team, that he's delivering. This was a victory that nobody called for us. I mean, it was like looking at every network and all their predictions on the week, and it was everybody was picking the Eagles. I think the only few people who didn't pick the Eagles was like Alex Smith. He on ESPN, he picked the 49ers. Terry Bradshaw, give Terry his flowers on that. I think that was it of who picked the 49ers. It was like everybody else picked the Eagles because the 49ers had no business winning this game. And how sweet is that to know that you are 5.5-point underdogs? Everybody's picking the Eagles, and it's that Eagles team that you hate so much. And I hate those Philly fans so much because you will not believe the messages they sent me. And I mean, just vile stuff. And sent them fly, Eagles fly, to Cancun.
Let's get to some super chats. I was talking about, guys that come on like the Colin Cowherd show. Shady McCoy is one of those dudes who hosts the show and just likes to bag on Brock. And he actually said, thanks to Lisa, Shady actually said Brock would have won if he was on the Eagles. I was shocked. And and this is where I'm saying again.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's as much flowers for Brock as if it was
hate on
shade on Jalen Hurts.
But the point is that the narrative could be changing though across the country as a whole.
It should change. Like this, it's just getting ridiculous at this point. It is absolutely. There are people that are even after yesterday are still going to put Justin Herbert as ranked ahead of Brock Purdy. And the simple reason is because if you put these guys on paper and you say, and they feel like if I say that I think Brock Purdy is a better quarterback than Justin Herbert, people are going to laugh at me because Justin Herbert is so talented and he's got such a big arm and he can make some crazy accurate throws. They're going to say that. But the fact is, the Patriots were not the defense that Philadelphia was. It was not as bad of conditions. It was bad conditions. He's got some great receiving weapons. And Justin Herbert scored 3 points. When Brock Purdy scored 3 points against the Seahawks, there were people literally bagging on him, not because of his performance, not because of anything. Because they couldn't use that. They were sitting there saying, imagine just Brock Purdy only scored 3 points. Just go take that same energy for Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert in the playoffs has been horrible.
Yeah.
His career is horrible in the playoffs. This is why we don't trust Sam Darnold. Like that's my biggest hope coming against the Seattle is that it's going to be playoff Sam Darnold, because playoff Sam Darnold has been horrible.
Cheeks.
Absolute cheeks. Like I could not take anybody serious at this point because of what happened this weekend. When people start putting Justin Herbert ahead of Brock Purdy, I'm sorry, I can't not agree with that, because people always say, "Well, imagine Justin Herbert with Kyle Shanahan," and I go, it doesn't matter if he can't do some of the plays that are there. I know Greg Roman doesn't coordinate the greatest passing attack, but there were plays that were there that were available. I could see it on the broadcast. I'm like, he's forcing this throw, or if he just waits this out, rolls a little bit to his right, it's going to be there. I've watched Brock do that 20 times. I'm sorry that conversation is just getting ridiculous, because it's only about where they were drafted, what their physical skill set is. Like, we have got to move beyond that. Because I promise you, that's why people will sit there and be hesitant to rank Brock ahead of Herbert at this point. And people probably in the chat, I don't have it pulled up, are probably going to flame me a little bit. There's people who if I post that online today on social media, I would get flamed and dragged because people, how dare you say that? I'm saying, look at their performances in the playoffs. Brock Purdy just scored 24 points. Or 23. I'm shooting from the hip here. But anyways, I'm just really excited. But Brock Purdy put up so much more offense than that Chargers did against a lesser defense.
Yeah.
Just at some point the arguments become ridiculous. And because I think somebody put it in the chat that, you're still going to have people just absolutely glazing Herbert even after what's happened. Like, I'm sorry, at this point, like, nobody, you cannot rank Justin Herbert ahead of Brock Purdy. Like, at least for a calendar year at this point, because it comes down to who performs in the playoffs. Because it doesn't matter how good your regular season is. Just ask Lamar Jackson about that. Multiple MVPs, has won a lot, and then has absolutely laid eggs in the Super Bowl or in the playoffs. So, like, it doesn't matter how good your regular season is if you completely fold in the playoffs. Like, Dan Marino had one of the best regular season stats and careers of any quarterback out there. The closest they got was a beatdown in the playoffs against the 49ers.
38-16.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, only scored 16 points. So I'm gonna give you So, you're just skipping some. Okay. So,
well, I don't. I starred him, and I don't think I did it in order, but now I can't figure out what order it was. So,
all right. So, all right, Cornelius. Thank you for the super chat. He says, shouts out to Juice, definitely, for channeling his spirit bro Kittle in clutch moments and the discipline of the team with little to no penalties. Again, I talked about Juice stepping up. He needed to. He knew he needed to. That was his guy. I mean, him and Kittle have, from their wives being great friends to them being good friends, like, it's just, you feel bad when your guy goes out, but there's this certain level probably of like energy that you get, like, okay, I have to take some of Kittle's juice from him and add it to my own juice, if you will, and go ball out. And He did. It was amazing. And the discipline of the team, yeah, it was huge. Yes, they I talked to some Eagles fans. They were actually very nice and congratulatory on Facebook, and they did just mention there was some definitely plays that could have been called, and I would agree, but that's every single game. There are calls that are either not made or made, that you still had 6 drops that in key moments. And so they weren't saying like, "Oh, we would have won if it wasn't for the refs." They weren't saying that, but they did point out that, some of those penalties, non-calls, and I get it. We would be doing the same thing. We would say, one or two calls that normally get called, if they're called, we get the ball to 25, we can get at least a field goal, blah blah blah. That has been a narrative on this show before.
Sure,
So
sure.
like I get it.
The I think the leveling factor is, um, yeah, but when you have George Kittle blow out his Achilles, when you have an
Yeah.
All Pro tight end blow out his Achilles in the game, and so look, the throw, it was the second pick, Quinyon Mitchell. Brock cannot throw an interception in that moment. Here's the leeway I give is that's a play that they probably ran in practice all week, and George Kittle's running that route. So, like you run that, you practice that in the walkthroughs, you get a certain look, and you get a certain look post snap, you're going to trigger that throw. You've just practiced it all week with George Kittle running that route. Now you're throwing to Jake Tonges, and Jake Tonges on Quinyon Mitchell. That's where Brock Purdy, it's like, Brock, just remember that one.
Yeah. Don't
That's
throw
Jake
it then.
Tonges,
Or throw it over his
not
head.
yeah, and I get it. I do think the elements did affect that throw. I think he meant it to be farther to his left, and the wind pulled it back. That's when you can't make that throw. That's also kind of on Shanahan. I don't love that call in that moment because that's the same exact route throw that Brock threw a pick against Seattle week 1. He was targeting Ricky Pearsall. It's the same exact throw against man coverage. And it was picked just like that. So, at some point, I don't love that play against man coverage. Like, if you're Brock and you get that, even if it's a matching, not necessarily man coverage, that's not a good matchup. Like, that is a staple play. We've been running that play a long time. That was a really bad time to call that, in my opinion. As far as where it's at, Brock needs to probably dirt that ball, or try and go get something with his legs. That was not a throw you want to take in that moment, because that was an opportunity the 49ers had to go bury the Eagles in that moment. Like, they had the lead. They could have absolutely put the dagger in the Eagles at that point. So that was one of the issues I had. But I will say, Juszczyk, you could see his emotions after the game, talking about the loss of George Kittle in the game, and how much that meant to him. I mean, yeah, shout out to them for picking all that up.
Yeah. So this I'm gonna give a reference from The Office because Cayman's Island podcast deserves that. And there's an episode where Michael Scott gets on, they do the interview part, and he says, "It takes a big man to say when he's done wrong. I am that man." And so Cayman's Island podcast checks in and says, "I would like to go on record and be that man." Apologize to JD and the faithful for picking the Eagles.
He did. He picked the Eagles. It was on his show. He
did.
picked the Eagles.
Thought it would be too much for the 49ers to overcome, but man, even with Kittle out, didn't want the Eagles to do it. So
I will say I was kind of like Terry Bradshaw. Like, and Adam and I had talked about it off air. Like, I did not actually think the 49ers could, but I wasn't going to pick against him.
Right.
And
that's exactly what Terry said. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you sit there and go,
that too.
I don't think, like, when you look at it on paper, this makes no sense. It absolutely made no sense that the 49ers would win, but you couldn't trust that Philadelphia offense, and 2, you just couldn't pick against Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers and Brock Purdy in the playoffs. And it happened. So it takes a big man to admit when he's wrong, and you are that man. He did text me last night. He was like, I was wrong on this one. And I told him, I said, from here on out, you've got to pick against the 49ers because you don't change it up now.
Oh, no, but man, I don't know. That's a lot to handle. But thank you for the super chat. Uh, and yeah, when I saw that come through last week, that was your prediction. I was like, row. But that was it was the game still was awesome.
Big
Thank
thank you
you.
to Yod Pilot ID.
Yep,
Thank you for
another
the super chat. No comment in there, just the super chat. We appreciate it. You
yeah,
the man.
keep the love coming. Um let's talk about the play.
The play.
There's so much that can go wrong when you add trickery. I do like that in the interview they talked about, hey, if there was nothing there, it's first down. Don't worry, just you know, get rid of it, whatnot. But man, that is still with the wind and just with the point of the game that it was. I just think it was one of the most ballsiest moves to do that with a defense like that, and to catch Blankenship, who is a Pro Bowler, is like just the chef's kiss. And I just couldn't believe what I was watching as it was happening. And I know we're all going to go back to the same type of play. It was different, obviously, because it was more of a screen in the Super Bowl where JJ threw it. But just what were you going through when as that play was happening, man?
Like no freaking way. So I'm watching the coaches film on it right now. Um, just to see an idea. One, this is fascinating because again, they got the Eagles in cover 9, first down. So they attacked
They
that.
stay at home. They play it well.
Well,
If they
like
freaking would have
what
stayed
I
at
mean
home.
is this was a play that was set up throughout the game, and because Kyle Shanahan knew, and it was just what I was talking about on Friday, Vic Fangio was going to be in cover 9 play on first down. Like I wasn't just making things up. I literally so what I do when I scout the opposing team is I'm going to go in and I'll go into NFL Pro. First thing I do, and I filter everything by first downs, and then I go through third downs. Those are the most important to me. Is what does a team do on 1st and 10, because that sets everything else up. So it answers the question for me: how can we attack this team on first down? And overwhelmingly, I saw Vic Fangio running cover 9. Then you go to third down, and that was where Fangio gets a lot of his blitz packages and different exotic looks coming in. So it was like, okay, you need to keep it in third and short. So how do you get high production on first down? That was everything I was looking at this week, was based upon how do you do that. So when I'm just looking at this play, I see, okay, they're in cover 9. First thing I see is that we run this fake jet sweep with Sky Moore. So remember earlier in the game, we had run a jet sweep to Sky Moore, and it looked like he was going to get good yards. He only got like 2 or 3. That's why Shanahan is willing to trash can a play. And he doesn't care if it only gets 1 or 2 yards, because he's setting something up. And this is what makes him so tough, is that
Yeah,
everything is tied to something. So he sets up this Sky Moore jet sweep. So you get Cooper DeJean is chasing Sky Moore across the field off this fake. That's the big thing right here, because Cooper DeJean is supposed to match on that deep route there. So then you have Christian McCaffrey run like he's a lead blocker for Juwan Jennings on a reverse. And again, because they're matching this out, they run Kendrick Bourne on a high crossing route. So Quinyon Mitchell, who's the outside guy there, is running with Kendrick Bourne on a high crosser towards away from the play. So he's got Mitchell's back turned and he's gone. Blankenship is out there, and what he sees is they've got no edge. The only guy that can tackle Juwan Jennings in space is a defensive tackle. Now, because they've ran Quinyon Mitchell off, they've ran Cooper DeJean off with the fakes. So now he's in a situation, he's in a 2-on-1 where he's looking at Juwan Jennings, who's got the ball tucked up. He's a great fake, but Christian McCaffrey is running right by him, and you can see him. He double takes. He turns, looks at McCaffrey, then he looks back at Juwan, and then he sees he's about to throw, and you see this oh crap moment, and he launches it out there. I don't blame Reed Blankenship for being stuck there. He was in no man's land, because he's looking at, they got a wide receiver with the only guy out here being a defensive tackle to try and catch him, and it's me. And so he's got to respect that run. And JJ, this is a throw and a half. He is falling back. He's at the 39-yard line, 38-yard line. This ball gets down to the 2. It's a 36-yard air yards pass. Christian McCaffrey with the catch over the shoulder. My goodness. Like, I don't even know if it's a situation where Reed Blankenship is biting hard. It's just they got everybody else to bite hard, and there's no one else there. And he's stuck in no man's land. And I mean, my goodness, what a great design. What a great play. Now, it's an old play. We've run this before. Saints 2019. At that time, it was originally meant for Debo. It was Debo bang pass. And
against the Rams,
this was Sky bang reverse pass. And no, it was against the Seahawks, or against the Saints, where you had the double reverse. The one with Debo wasn't a double reverse. It was a toss. Debo was rolling out because we were using Debo so much as the wide back at that moment. So they do this little toss and they get the Rams crashing down, and then he throws the pass to Christian McCaffrey. But I mean, just great to see that. I mean, pulled it out after 6 years. That's amazing.
JJ has a bigger arm than Phillip Rivers. Quit football.
He's not wrong. Look, JJ was a high school quarterback.
Yeah. He was a huge athlete coming out of high school, like going to Tennessee. No, that was huge. Also, Quit Football earlier said that we had Vic Fangio just completely upset the whole game, and it was elder abuse. So Quit Football leaving nothing short of zingers on the Johnny Dell podcast.
Rough. I love Vic Fangio. Okay, I will say Vic Fangio has been my favorite defensive coordinator for a while. Just what Vic does is he's had more influence on the NFL than, I mean, Robert Saleh since 2019 has borrowed a lot of stuff from Vic. You know, what Robert Saleh runs is kind of this hybrid of Jim Schwartz, Vic Fangio, and Nick Saban / Kirby Smart. Like, a lot of what they run in principles is very much a mix of those guys. And so, you know, I love Vic. I think he calls a great defense. Unfortunate that he's probably never going to get a head coaching gig again, and that he's probably with the Eagles, unless he just really doesn't want to work under Sirianni anymore. You know, one thing that I will give Sirianni a little bit of credit for this is that he's probably so hands off that Vic can do whatever he wants and doesn't have a head coach looking over his shoulder, and doesn't have a head coach who's trying to chime in and trying to comment on how he thinks things should change.
Yeah. A few housekeeping items, because there is more people than average in the chat, which is to be expected because it is a huge Monday after a big win. I just want to remind you guys, if you are new to the channel, that the big part of this channel is Johnny's videos, and you want to hit the notification bell because they don't always come at the same exact time, depending on life and other things, but the videos are all what this channel is about. The whys and the hows, and his knowledge on the game is insanity, and the fact that he's a Niners fan is just awesome. So make sure that you hit the notification bell. Make sure that you take your phone and show it to people in Niners gear throughout this week and throughout your life, to be honest. Shifty checking in. And yes, I was going to talk about the defense, and I want to talk about Siegel, and I want to talk about Kendricks. Let's start with Siegel. Just the step up factor, obviously Robert Saleh, but man, let's give it, we're handing out flowers, man. We're giving our flowers out. Let's start with Siegel.
100%. I mean, dude had to come in playing a backup role. I mean, that's really tough for as long as he's been in that backup role, to be ready and stay prepared, stay on your scouting reports, stay on your assignments. all this time to come in and be ready for that Eagles offense. They did not get a big play against him in the game. They had a little bit of an opportunity there,
Well,
but he recovered. He recovered. Well, it wasn't
right.
necessarily dropped. It wasn't within A.J. Brown's catch radius. And part of that was because Siegel had recovered. If it had been, it would have bounced off the back of Siegel's helmet. So like he closed the window real quick. But it's exactly what we saw from his college film and what we saw earlier in the season. And I just haven't been able to understand. I don't know if it's because Saleh believes he can do a little bit more complexity on the back end with the checks and changes. And because of the loss of Fred Warner, needing a guy who's got a little bit more experience being back there and handling that stuff. But Siegel is a much more aggressive and solid tackler coming up against a run. Like since he's gone down, and yes, it coincided, or since he left the lineup, and yes, it coincided with Fred Warner going down because of that Buccaneers game. Malik Mustafa came back. And since Mustafa came back, what they ended up doing was moving Jason Pinnock to the big nickel, and that moved Jair Brown back to free safety. And so, since then, yes, part of it was Fred Warner going down, but our run defenses had really fallen off. Like it was really good at the beginning, and then it started to dip, then it would get better, and then it would dip, and then it would get better. But in all of it, I was getting so frustrated with Jair Brown because it was like he was giving up some plays in there, but so many run fits. And this goes back to 2024 and back to 2023. I was so frustrated with him in 2024 because there were so many plays and games where if that end did not keep a hard edge, that Jair Brown was screwed because he's just not great in space, is coming up, and he's got a slower trigger in coming up against the run. And we've been seeing that, especially against Seattle, that 3rd and 17, Jair Brown was to his side, and he was not blocked. He was never blocked on that play. The only guy on the defense, even remotely, that was never touched by a Seahawk. And so you have got to make that play in the most important play of the year. And he couldn't make that tackle. Siegel comes in, and the Eagles could barely run at all. And it was like he needs to be playing. Like he's probably gonna have to play anyways because Jair Brown pulled a hamstring, our 17th hamstring injury this year, I think. And that's not hyperbole. That is literally like the 17th hamstring injury. Again, strength and conditioning's got to go. Hamstrings are one of the more avoidable injuries, and when you have 17, the league average is 5.3 per team per year, and you have 17, I'm sorry, that's an issue. So Jair Brown's not going to be coming back by Seattle. So it's going to be Marquise Siegel back there. That like, to me, that's a very good thing for this matchup. Because if you go back to week 1 against Seattle, I know we had Nick Bosa, I know we had Michael Williams, and I know we had Fred Warner, but Seattle could not run the ball at all. And that part of that was safety play and Marquise Siegel. So huge props to Siegel. To me, he needs to be your guy going forward. Now, you don't give it to him because he needs to work his tail off this offseason and become that guy. But he clearly, I think, has he's got an incredibly high ceiling because of his athletic traits and the way he can tackle. And so, for me, Siegel is your clear inside track to be your safety going forward. Because especially if you can solidify that spot, Mustafa is going to have some splash plays, and he can come up really strong in the run game, and he can make some plays. He's not as consistent right now. I think he needs a year under Saleh's system in the offseason and everything, getting the reps.
And to fully heal as well.
And to fully heal. I think, if Marquise Siegel can come in and solidify that spot, that is suddenly a hole that is no longer there that we've been talking about. We need new safeties. I don't think we do. I think we have the guys in the building that can answer that call. They need to, and that would be really helpful going forward, going into a draft where you're probably going to have to get a tight end now. You're really going to have to look long and hard at tight end. I do think this does make it interesting in free agency with Kyle Pitts. But I think, Siegel coming in, huge Huge play by the young kid. Absolutely love it.
So I'll admit I forgot that my new favorite linebacker, who I was sworn to hate because he chose the Cowboys
And
after
gave us
2 years
Devondre
ago.
Campbell.
Yeah, but I started with the love relationship, and I forgot about it because he went to UCLA. I'm a UCLA fan, and then it made me remember, okay, how good this guy was in Minnesota, all pro, and that I thought he was older than what he is. I went into a Google, like, just Wikipedia last night. Um, his wife is very pretty. I will say that as well. Look, that's how far
That
I
doesn't
fell in
sound
love with this
creeper at
guy.
all.
I fell in love with this guy. Let me just tell you. I'm like the game after the game that he played. I'm just being honest. 10 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and the play of the game to deflect that ball, and just the nuance of dropping back at that time to get his hands up. I mean, take us through that final play.
Well, not only that, but he talked about it, and it's again why veteran presence is so important at the linebacker spot. Look, Tatum Bethune has a lot of good physical traits, but there was the drop off between him and from Fred Warner to him was such a massive gulf. And I'm not even meaning like, yes, you would expect a drop off when you have an all pro guy like Fred and you have an all pro guy who's just so good in Fred Warner. There's a drop off from Fred Warner to Eric Kendricks, right? But the drop off from Fred Warner to Tatum Bethune was a massive gulf because Tatum Bethune, and it was what we saw early in his rookie year. He was going to be a 3 to 4 year project because of all of he needed to learn a lot, especially on the coverage end. And I saw that the play he tore his groin. I showed it on my review video against Seattle. Like he's literally sitting there, could have a pick six, and he's just hesitant because he's not recognizing the trigger isn't there on what he's seeing. Eric Kendricks, that's my son in the background. If you hear him, he's drawing. He's been there and he's seen things, and there's not these just silly mistakes. You go back to Seattle, that touchdown run that they had, that big touchdown run that they had, that's on Tatum Bethune. He was supposed to scrape over and fill the C gap, and he's not there. And before, while their guy's still running, he's turning back trying to figure out what went wrong. It's like, dude, that's on you. It's crazy to me because Eric Kendricks played a great game. That the thought of if you can get Fred Warner back, can you put? And now it'd be even more to ask on Kendricks,
Right. That's what I was
but
thinking too.
technically he was originally sought
already
after
out
to
of
be the guy
position.
next to Fred Warner.
Yeah.
That's where they went after him, and that's why they had to go sign Devondre Campbell. That's why he said I had to learn a new position this year. He's generally been the will. So like that's his home position is where D Winters has been. But you look at the possibility of, okay, if you can win this game, and I'm not sold that Fred's not going to try and come back by this game. I wouldn't be surprised if they open his practice window this game. Honestly,
Yeah.
I really would not.
We'll see. Yeah.
I mean, he was running on a side field this last week.
Right.
Doing all this training and conditioning. Dude's been sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber. That you could ostensibly have your starting linebackers at the end of the playoffs be Fred Warner and Eric Kendricks playing the way he's been. Like you literally go from having one of the worst linebacking cores in the NFL to where we're saying this actually could be a really strong unit. That's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, it is
Because of the ascension of Eric Kendricks. I mean, I'm watching. I got the very last play pulled up here, and let's see. And this, I mean, this is so smart. Like so they start out with the play. He's on the strong side, right? Because he's normally the Mike, and Garrett Wallows is the Will, and so they've got it's Devontae Smith, and they've got I don't know who he is, number 2, for the Eagles, and Saquon's on the left. They got their tight end, Goddard, A.J. Brown to the right, weak side, right? So what they're going to have is that at the snap, Saquon's crossing Hurts's face to pick up the to be on a check release. So that changes the passing strength from passing strength was to Kendricks' side. Now it's to Wallow's side. And so we're playing quarters here, but he's what's called a 3 receiver hook. So what he's got to do is so Wallow can come down and pick up Saquon if he were to release. Kendricks has to be the guy that picks up the number 2 down the hash, the opposite hash. So, and he talked about this in his post-game presser. He was like, once I saw Saquon cross the formation, I knew I had to go get to the other hash. And that's exactly what he does. Like this is textbook linebacker play, because that allows you to keep 4 over 3 to the strong side and 3 over 2 to the weak side. And what Hurts is looking at is he's going to get a bender on Goddard to the weak side, because Wallow cannot bring that towards the hash because he's got to account for Saquon. Like this is really high level quarterbacking or linebacker play to catch that. Now I'm not sold that Goddard actually comes down with this ball as a first down, because this Mustafa is driving on this. I mean, he probably does though, and it'd be right at the sticks. But it'd be a bang play, but that's Eric Kendricks. I mean, if he's not down that hash, if he's on the opposite hash, that very well could be a completion, and we're talking about 49ers season being over. That's wild. And because Philadelphia had 2 timeouts, and it was like 38 seconds left in the game. Now it's hilarious to me that Jalen Hurts burning a timeout on that 4th down was why the Eagles couldn't actually stop the 49ers from just kneeling the ball 3 times.
I mean, it was over. Even if they
because even if they can, they got to punt the ball. There's going to be 30 seconds left, and you never know what could happen. And you never say never. Like
I know
they still had a chance, but they didn't have the timeouts to stop the kneel down. Yeah, they tried though, even with only 2.
We had some goofiness with our timeouts in the first half with that fumble. I texted you right as that replay. I'm like, oh no, that is a true fumble. Like, yeah, I thought that would come back to bite us. I really did. But luckily we didn't even need it. Imagine if we would have had that field goal. I mean, how the game, just unbelievable by the 49ers to just like go through whatever is thrown in their way to say, hey, we have something special here. Kendricks talked about that they're asking him, is this improbable what you're doing? And he even said, like, on the outside, to the outside world, like, I get it probably does, but I've been here now a couple months. Like, I gotta tell you, I don't feel like it's that weird that we're doing this, because like he's now bought in and he sees it and he sees how the guys are in the locker room, and now he's like, no, this isn't weird at all. This is what we do. So it's cool to see someone come in from the outside and understand that we are all in awe. The whole country is in awe of what they're able to do. But him being on the inside to say, no, this is kind of normal now. We should win.
And he credited Brock Purdy. He credited George Kittle. He credited Trent Williams. He credited those guys as saying those guys have set the culture in this building of how you work, how you approach everything, how we stay together as a team. So big credit to those guys. Just absolutely a great win. I mean, I'm like, we could get dog walked by Seattle next week, and in the end, I'm not going to look back on the season and feel upset. Like, I think it's also changed my mind in retrospect of some things. Like, so if you actually think about it in context, there's been a lot more time has passed between when Jim Harbaugh was fired and Kyle Shanahan, and now with Kyle Shanahan, to when Jim Harbaugh was at the end of his was hired and Steve Mariucci. Because Mooch was fired after 2002, right? And then Harbaugh was brought in 9 years later. Harbaugh was fired in 14. We're now sitting here in 2025, the season, 2025 season. I think about what happened, like that. I always felt like Mooch was done dirty because of the way they got beat so bad by Tampa in that 2002 year. They had that amazing playoff comeback against the Giants,
Right.
and then got absolutely thrashed by uh,
The
a
Super
former
Bowl
member of
champion.
his staff, John Gruden, by the Bucks, who went on to win the Super Bowl and
Yeah,
thrashed
so no
everybody.
shame. Yeah, no shame.
Right, so I always
Thrash
felt like
Jerry Rice.
Mooch was done dirty, and they were dealing with all that dead cap that year, $20 million in dead cap on a $70 million salary cap. But I look at this year and I say, okay, now I don't have as much grace for Mooch, because that 2002 49ers team, like the talent that they did have, that team really didn't have any business losing in the divisional round. They had no business being dog walked for the first half against the Giants in the wild card round. This 49ers team absolutely decimated, found a way to win a wild card game.
It is crazy. It's built a weird, numb, like thing now moving forward, where whenever we have injuries over the next decade, we're just going to be more frustrated because, well, we were injured back in 2025 and we did just fine. Like this, we do have to step back a little bit and say how special this is, because it is still not probable. Just
Well, and I
overall,
just
it's
think of,
just
like,
not.
what did Mooch do with some of the players he had, and what is this coaching staff done with the players they've had? I mean, you had guys like Ahmad Plummer, who was getting 7 interceptions in a season. Imagine if you had a 49ers corner on this team that was playing at the level that Ahmad Plummer was. The safeties were playing. I think it was Tony Parrish was the safety at that time. Like that dude was at the peak prime of his career and playing really well. You had Andre Carter on the team. You had Jeff Ulbrich as a linebacker. You had Derek Smith. You had Garrison Hurst as your running back. Terrell Owens as a receiver out there. Jeremy Newberry, who has been the best center that the 49ers have had over the last 25 years. I think outside
Yeah.
of Weston Richburg, and Richburg got hurt. But I think the two best centers that the 49ers have had over the last 25 years is Weston Richburg and Jeremy Newberry. I mean, you had a lot of really talented players on that team. And so, like, it's just this coaching staff has made me look back on that one and say, I used to have a ton of sympathy for Mooch. I do feel like, Mooch was better than I think he was given credit for. But I look at that and I go, what this coaching staff has been able to do with their players is far beyond anything I ever saw Mooch do. And so, like it just is. And so I don't know. I'm in a place of like whatever we can do to keep this coaching staff together. Please let it happen. Like, please let these guys understand the biggest thing, Kyle Shanahan. If I'm, no matter how the season ends, I'm sitting down with my coaching staff and I'm saying, here's what I'm willing to do. We are going to clean house and completely change our approach to player health, because we have got to change something. We are going to find whoever we can, from the Eagles, from the Rams, from anywhere, the Saints, around the league, who have top flight injury prevention programs. And I'm going to look at Robert Saleh and I'm going to say, I know you want to go be a head coach. You stick with me one more year and we keep these guys healthy. I will do whatever we got to do, because I am more loyal and see you as more valuable than anything I see with this training staff. And so I'm going to do whatever we got to do to get these guys as healthy as possible, because if I give you a healthy defense and what we can get with a healthy offense, that we are freaking winning the Super Bowl next year.
Man.
And you come off of a Super Bowl win as defense coordinator, there will be teams that have head coaches that if they call you and say, Robert, if you're willing to come here, we will fire our coach just to get you. Like, there will be teams that would do that. And so, like, that would be my message to Robert Saleh is you want the best success possible. We want the best success for you. And the best success for you is going to be coming off of our best success.
I wonder with us winning if that hurts.
Okay,
Saleh.
I've got to address this electrical subs. I know it's become almost a joke, but there is some traction to it with the EMF and all this stuff.
KB
The 49ers have been practicing at that location since 1988. Okay, this is where the headquarters has been for a long time. They built their stadium next to where their headquarters were.
Yeah.
But the headquarters have been there since 1988. That electrical substation has been there since 1988. So, like, this idea that it's the EMF and it's just around now, then explain how the 49ers won 3 Super Bowls practicing next to the same substation.
Yeah, it's...
People think about it as something new because we've been playing at Levi's at that time. And since we've been playing at Levi's, we've had all these problems. And Levi's is right next to that. And their practice field's right next to it. They built Levi's next to their practice location and headquarters. That was why if they couldn't build in San Francisco, they were going to build next to their headquarters and keep it all right there.
Yeah.
And so, like, their headquarters have been there for 20 years, almost 20 years before they built Levi's. Like, so I'm just saying.
Yep. RIP Great America. I grew up going there. And when you put a stadium in Great America's parking lot, it's going to go by the wayside.
Now it's the silver dioxide. People are talking about the chemtrails. This is silver dioxide. They're cloud seeding.
Yeah. So we don't know exactly when we play Saturday. I want to address this. I think it'll be the early game based on how the graphic looks. They'll announce it tonight officially, but I totally saw this coming. I knew we were going to play Saturday because Seattle's been off for all this time, and it is supposed to help the number one
game on Saturday. Like, seriously, screw the NFL on that, because you cannot ask a team to go fly from San Francisco all the way to Philadelphia, fly all the way back, have to prep, and then fly out Friday, because they're not going to land. They didn't land until like 4 a.m. this morning on Monday. You can't ask them to turn around and fly on Friday for a playoff game. You want actual good product, then quit doing that. Because you know what? The Rams, if they got to fly, which they do, to Chicago, I don't care, because they flew back from Carolina on Saturday. Like, they would, it's equally fair to ask each team to do that. There is no reason why they can't put the Rams on Saturday, that they can't put the Bills and whoever it was. I'm forgetting how the schedule went down, because
I'm just saying,
so hyped
this
over
is
everything.
how it goes.
Like, there's no
It's just how
excuse
it goes,
for
though.
them doing any of this. I know it's how it goes. It's just it's beyond frustrating. But you know what? This team has been like Captain America. I can do this all day,
Yeah.
all season long. And so what? You know, we can do this all day. You can sit here and throw everything against you. And I think Glass City's been right. The NFL wants the Seahawks and Rams in the NFC Championship game. They think that's going to be the biggest sparks are going to fly, and that's going to draw the most eyeballs. I don't give two craps. You know what? We can do this all day. You guys can throw whatever you want at us. It's going to be Sam Darnold in the playoffs, and we know what Sam Darnold looks like. He has never won a playoff game. So, you know what? On you for that. You're going to get what you want. And what you're actually going to get is probably Bears 49ers, which should be the NFC playoff game, because that was your best Sunday night game of the year. So that's what you're going to get.
And it's going to be at
and
the Bears.
And that Bears team is now lost 2 major pieces on their team that are donezo. So, and the 49ers didn't have Trent Williams in that game. So suck on that, NFL.
Well, all right. So again, be sure to subscribe, show your friends this channel, stay tuned, make sure you hit the notification bell so that when Johnny drops the video of this game, man, I cannot wait to see some of the stuff you're going to show. It's just,
did I mention it already? I hadn't thought about that. You know what's amazing to think about right now is that the 49ers have already beat every team that's left in the NFC.
Oh yeah, someone mentioned in the chat. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I posted it this morning on my X. Like, That's one thing that no matter what you're thinking about, the 49ers have no chance, or they have already beat every team that's left.
So
I mean,
also,
yes, they've been beat by the Seahawks, and yes, they've been beat by the Rams, but they have beat every team that's left in the NFC playoffs. Actually, this goes back to the old, well, the 49ers had the easiest strength of schedule. Well, those people can go suck on an egg, because the fact is San Francisco beat every team in the NFC playoffs except for the Packers, because we didn't play them. But every other team in the NFC playoffs, we have beat this season. We had to play and beat. So you can suck on an egg there.
so here's shout out to the NFC West that they are like dominating the the NFL. I mean, you look at who's left. I mean, it's unreal. I don't know if we've seen this. I was thinking back, like what division has done this where
They're 40 and
75
7 against the rest of the league. Like the Rams Cardinals. No, Rams, Seahawks, 49ers combined records against outside of the NFC West is 40 and 7. They need to change the playoff seeding. This is ridiculous. I said this, was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that, that they needed to look at it, and people are like, well, you're just meaning that division records don't matter and winning your division don't matter. No, it still gets you in the playoffs.
right, it should
But the
still
fact is
but
that the
seeding them from there.
49ers, like having to go on the road against Philadelphia was
Yeah.
already kind of ridiculous. But I will
The
say
Panthers should
the
be the 7.
49ers are undefeated on the road so far this year. Like, they haven't lost a road game. Their losses this year were at home, I think. Got to remember that. Got to double check that. But like they've been a better road team than a home team this year, and it's like been that way for a little while. So like the fact of going on the road in the playoffs doesn't worry me.
An 8-9 team should not host a playoff game. If they win their division, they should be in the playoffs. That's the
Well, because
way.
the argument always is, well, you
They
have a
don't
really good
mean
division that's
nothing.
beating up on each other, and that's why their losses are. No, the NFC West has proven that to be 100% wrong, because they actually had a worse record from being the top records because they beat up on each other. But they were
At
40 and
Tampa,
7 against the
we
rest of the
lost.
league,
We lost at
right?
Tampa. We lost at
Right.
Tampa.
But I'm just saying, like, when you
So we lost on the
when those
road.
three, whatever.
That's all I'm saying.
Whenever you're 40 and 7 against the rest of the league, and an 8 and 9 team from the worst division in football is hosting a playoff game against a team from that other division, that makes no sense. That just makes no sense. I'm sorry. Like, you cannot make this argument, because I cannot historically remember a time when there was a division that was just so good everybody had an 8 and 9 record because they were all losing to each other. It doesn't work that way. You play 6 games against your division. Even at, like, if you were really just a dominant division, then what happened was everybody would be splitting games like the 49ers and did with Seahawks and Rams, and the Seahawks and Rams did with each other, where you'd be splitting these games. And really what would end up happening is you would all still have really good records. This argument that, well, a really good division is having to play each other. No, it's horse poo poo. Like, that is not something that actually happens. It there is no reason to keep the seeding the way it is, where you just win your division, you magically get a playoff game, even if you're an 8 and 9 trash team that is hosting a team that won 4 more games than you. Makes no sense.
The way that they can make divisions still matter is, even if you're 8-9 and you win your division, you
You
get
make the playoffs.
in the
Right.
playoffs.
I'm not saying like
Right.
remove divisional winners from automatic playoff spots. Like, you keep that, because winning your division does matter, and it should matter, but it shouldn't get the extra bonus of hosting a playoff game, of home field advantage. Like, there should be a different tier. It should be first, because the first thing that all NFL teams will do is, first goal is to make the playoffs. It's not to get home field advantage in the playoffs. It is to make the playoffs. So then your goals after that are to get home field advantage in the playoffs, because that is a bigger thing. So really, like, it should be, you win your division, you get in the playoffs, but you still have to beat everybody else and earn that right for a home playoff game. Like, you really do have to earn it. It can't be because you're just the best team in a really bad division. Because that was the Eagles, right? Was at one point, like, they were a good team in a bad division. I mean, Like that's the Steelers right now. The reason why Houston has to go on the road to the Steelers are not a good team. They're in a really bad division. Like that division has not been good this year at all. You shouldn't get a home playoff game because you play in a really bad division.
Yeah, I don't I I see both arguments. I do understand that the owners will never go for it because you can't the Panthers owner is not going to go for that when now he's
But the Rams
losing.
owners would. I mean, after this season, the Rams would. Jed York would.
So, yeah, but there's times when it would burn Jed York then as well. But I will say this is weird.
I don't ever remember the 49ers hosting a playoff game as a division winner against a team that
No,
had a
I'm
better
saying
record.
later. No, I'm saying later in
Yeah,
life.
but
In
well, okay.
2031,
Well,
that could happen.
later in life, I may grow a tail out of my rear end, but I'm not going to count on it. I'm not going to make decisions based on that.
Well, business owners do make decisions based on what could happen in the future. I'm just saying that.
Right, but if you're Jed York, you're going to say I am much more likely to end up having to go on the road and play a playoff game against an inferior division opponent just because they won their division than I would be to host the game. Like that's happened multiple times for the 49ers. It hasn't happened the opposite way. So if I'm Jed York, I'm not sitting here saying, well, it could happen one time, even though I could prevent what's already happened to me, I think 2 or 3 times. No, it doesn't. Because if you're an owner that's actually competitive, you're going to say, you know what, I don't care because we're not going to let that be a factor anyways. We're going to have a better record.
I mean, this is a huge discussion. I do think I'm with you.
I'm not in my feelings right now. I'm spitting facts, yo. Like
Yeah.
there is no reason
Tell
that
me,
the Rams, like as much as I hate the Rams, there's no reason to justify the Rams going on the road to the Carolina Panthers. That division was a 3-way tie at 8-9.
win your division and it's not a problem is the argument, but it is a problem because you cannot tell me Martians come down and they say explain the playoffs, and then you say a team who is 8-9 playing against a team that's 12-5. Where do you think the game is played? And they would say, well, who is 12-5? We'd say Los Angeles. Oh, well, then the game is in Los Angeles. It doesn't matter that the Rams didn't win their division. What are you talking about? That doesn't matter. It's not a stupid standard. It's a regular human
Win your division,
standard.
you get in the playoffs. That should be the reward for winning your division.
100%.
You get in the playoffs, which is a big deal, which means your season is still going, but you don't automatically get in the playoffs and get to host a home playoff game. You're getting a 2-for-1 for winning your division. And I get it. Winning your division should be a big deal, but should it be such a big deal? It's 6 out of 17 games.
Right.
Okay.
It's not even half.
Like I don't understand.
Yeah. And look, it's fine to disagree. All I'm saying is, how can you logically look at a team that has more losses than wins against the MVP?
Well, like I could understand the argument if like the Rams were a 10-win team and the Panthers were an 8-win team, and you have these really good teams that are beating up on each other within their own divisions. Okay, I can sort of buy that argument. When you have the NFC West and the Seahawks, 49ers, Rams all being 40-7 versus the rest of the league, it is clear that the 49ers, Seahawks, and Rams are the 3 best teams in the NFC. Like it's not close. And now that Bears Rams game could get spicy, but
right.
The only way the Bears pull that game out is if Stafford is just like what we had talked about, is that father time and the wearing down of his body on the season is happening. We started to see that a little bit in the Carolina game. That's the only way I see LA not winning that game.
The reason it's not like the NBA is because exactly no one cares about who wins the Pacific, for example. However, if you win your division,
You
you're
still get the
automatically
playoffs.
in the playoffs. Like, again, what are you talking about? If you're upset that, let's take it the other way. If you're 8-9 and you win your division and you're upset that we've changed it and you say, "Oh, we don't get a home playoff game," then here's what we'll say, Al Davis, just win, baby. Win more games. If you don't like being 8-9 and not getting a home playoff game, then here's what you do. You be a good football team and not just beat up on your crappy division area code. Like, congratulations to the Carolina Panthers.
Well,
They were best in their area code. But as far as football goes, they're not the best even a little. But congratulations for that southeastern corner of the universe. They get to have a home playoff game because, oh, they got their little section. Good job. They won their section. Who cares? This is football. Are you a good team or not? That's what we care about. And we're still throwing them a bone because they still get into the playoffs, which is why you still care about divisions.
Well, yeah, it's not saying that divisions don't matter, but I don't understand the argument that divisions don't matter anymore if it's getting you in the playoffs.
Right.
Isn't that is the number one goal of every team in the NFL every single year is to get in the playoffs, because once you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. So that is the number one goal. Like, if you ask a team, would you rather have home field advantage in next year, or would you rather have a playoff game this year? And they would say a playoff game this year. Getting a playoff game, no matter where it is the number one incentive of every single team in the NFL, because nothing is guaranteed after that. So number one, win your division, you get in the playoffs. Because the fact is, like, the way that the season was shaking out, the Lions, if it was just pure seeding, the Lions had a better chance of actually making the playoffs if you had no playoff contender from the NFC South, because the way that the record could have worked out. And they were going to miss the playoffs because they, with potentially a better record than one of the NFC South teams. We're saying don't get rid of that. No, I'm fine with the Lions not making, because they were the worst of the wild card teams, and you have a division winner. So yes, Carolina should still be in the playoffs no matter how the Lions finished the season. So I don't have a problem with that. It's the problem of how you're going to seed everything out now. The fact that the 49ers were the 6th seed when they clearly should have been the 3 seed in the playoffs makes no sense. At worst, they should have been the 4 seed. Like, there's no argument to say that the Rams and 49ers were worse teams than the Eagles and Panthers, because those things played out exactly like how it really was. Like, the records showed it, and then the playoff game showed it. So, like, there is no justification to say that you get an automatic home playoff game as an 8-9 team in a division that all the top 3 teams all were 8-9. It's just, it doesn't matter. They've been talking about it. I really do think that this year might be a year where they push that and they say, we really do need to rethink seeding here, because it's been an argument, because this has been happening. This isn't the first time that, like, the last 6 years, you're seeing more and more of this, where there are teams that are having to go on the road against inferior opponents that everybody knows is an inferior opponent, and it doesn't make sense. Like, we're incentivizing mediocrity in those divisions, because you say, well, you know what? Even if we don't close out these 3 games, we still are, our division's so bad, we're still going to host a playoff game. And it actually incentivizes owners to be okay with some mediocrity. That's why Todd Bowles is still in Tampa Bay. Like, they have not had a good season in a while, and yet they've been hosting playoff games, so their owner's still making a lot of money. Like, you make a lot more money as an owner by hosting one playoff game than you do winning 2 road playoff games. So, like, if you actually want owners to be incentivized for their teams to be better and to invest and to do what they got to do, then you make home playoff games based upon exactly how many games you win.
So the argument's going to go both ways. You win your division, your fan base gets a home game 100%. You can't take that away from owners, is one side of the argument. However, be 12-5 and play a team who's 8-9. You're taking that away from the 12-5 team who deserves it more. Like, so you're taking away from that owner. So it is very easy to counter argue all the people that say leave it the same way. There's so it's such an easy counter argument. And the biggest thing we're using, I feel like this is men versus women, and I'll explain why. Hang with me.
Whoa,
Hang,
whoa, whoa,
hang,
whoa,
hang.
whoa,
No,
whoa.
no, no,
You're
no,
about to steer us into some
no. But
choppy waters here,
and
Adam.
I don't care, because here's what happens, and you can attest to this because you're married, that overall, not 100% of the time, but when men and women argue, men use logic. Like, hey, the flight is at noon. We need to be there at 11. It's 10:45 and we haven't left yet. So I'm upset with you. Right. Like, so that's logic. Logic says 8 and 9 should not host a playoff game. That's simple human logic. And only like a different kind of thinking where you don't use logic and I'm just going off my feeling or something would say, well, no, but they won their area code. They were good in their area code. Oh, okay. The area code. Who cares about an area code? Who cares? That is not like, that's not what
My
we're
cell
worried
phone
about.
provider.
Yeah. So I just don't understand the point of an 8 and 9 team when we're
All right,
saying
all right.
that they
We
get a home playoff game.
we've you know what? This would be a great episode for Sports Idiot Nation talking about it. Um,
We actually do need to get on that probably.
yeah. With it all, I got some film to break down. Got a preview video to work out. Thankfully, I've got a lot of work done on a preview video because I've watched several Seattle games this year and have a lot of film in the can already from the last time we played them. Look, it's not bulletin board material that Juice and Kyle are putting out there. It is facts. Like I watched the film. There was more self-inflicted wounds against Seattle than anything. So it's not a stretch for them to sit there and say that, we kind of beat ourselves on that one, and we expect it to be a different game. I expect it to be a different game. It should be a different game, but we're going to go have a great game against Seattle this week. It's going to be it's going to be difficult. I hope Ricky Pearsall can get back up. I mean, really, like
That's
he makes a
huge.
difference in how we play against Seattle. Having Trent Williams back, and he'll get an extra 6 days to heal on that hamstring. He knew he was like, it was holding on. Like there's a risk of re-injury there. I'm gonna flip a lid if they open Fred Warner's practice window this week, because it makes sense, because the time it would close that you would have to make a decision not to keep him up would be the practice week going into the Super Bowl, because the third Monday would be the at the end of that 21-day period would be the Monday before the Super Bowl. So you would either know by that point if Fred can go or not. And
Yeah.
so it doesn't make any sense not to open his practice window right now. I think maybe if anything, you wait until Wednesday, give him a couple more days in there if that were to happen. But at this point, like you can't, you're not, as Kyle says himself, we can't be guaranteed that any of us are going to be alive next week. So I say you shoot for it. If nothing else, the mental fear that the thought of Fred Warner coming back puts in the heart of Sam Darnold.
So again,
So Adam, I'll just let me ask you, what would be your reaction if on Saturday, if this game is on Saturday,
it is,
they
yes.
run those starting lineups and in there you see 54 run out on the field?